It's been a while since I've done this at the beginning of the episodes, but I just want to give a shout out to all of you guys. Thank you so much for listening in and tuning in to us. And I want to remind you as well that we do love hearing from you and your thoughts about the episodes. So please let us know your thoughts about anything at isfitshappy@gmail.com, or you can comment on the episodes or on anything really on our social medias. It is Fitzhappy. We're at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, YouTube. We read all the comments. We love to discuss those, and we even bring some of them up on the podcast after the typical chapter section. So thank you so much for that, and let's get into the episode. Welcome back to another episode of Is Fits Happy. I'm Luke.
And I'm Emma.
We're discussing chapter 11 this week, Bodies and Souls. There's a lot of point of view shifts in this one.
Yeah, it's actually a fun chapter with some serpent point of views. I feel like we don't get very many of those. I hate their point of view personally, but as much as I don't like them, they're really not in the book that often.
They're not. Usually it's just the beginning and the end, and maybe like one in the middle. And here we get one in the middle of a chapter.
Yeah, but it does kind of make sense because this is the last chapter before we move into the section winter. So It is the end of a season.
Yeah, I suppose. Well, we start with Wintrow. He is slowly on the mend here, and he's walking out onto the deck, and he notices that the crew seems to be accepting him as one of their own, and he's kind of in a better mood because the ship woke up again, right?
Right. Well, he's not feeling super well. We know that this chapter is starting from the day after he drank with Kennit. So from the last chapter we had with them, basically no time has passed, just overnight. And he is a little bit self-conscious of how he's looking right now because even the pirates are flinching, but they are generally actually wishing him well. But he is making his way very slowly up to the figurehead, where he discovers that she is not lifeless as she was yesterday.
Vivacia, he greeted her joyously. Slowly, she turned to him, her black mane sweeping across her bare shoulders. She smiled at him. The swirling gold of a dragon's eyes gleamed above her red lips. He stared at her in horror.
Yeah, so not exactly what he was expecting, but here we have the dragon coming forward and taking over Vivacia, and now Wintrow knows about it.
Yeah. So he's asking, like, what did you do to her? Where is she? And the dragon's just like, where is who?
Right. The dragon is pretending as though Vivacia never existed, and there isn't anywhere for Vivacia to go. She can't be here because she's not real.
Right. She says, she never was. Don't you understand? She was just a shell, a muddle of memories that your ancestors tried to impose on me. She wasn't real. As a result, she isn't anywhere, not imprisoned in me nor destroyed. She is like a dream I had, and part of me, I suppose, in the sense that dreams are part of the dreamer. Vivacia is gone. All that was hers is mine now, including you. Her voice went hard on the last two words. Then she smiled again and put warmth in her voice as she added, but let us forego such inconsequential chatter. Tell me, how are you feeling today? You look so much better, though I believe you would have to be dead to look worse than you did.
So the dragon does not like Vivacia or Vivacia's connection to the Vestrits.
Right.
And before this talk, whenever Wintrow's asking, where is she? And the dragon responds, where is who?
Where's Rachel?
Wintrow notes that when she slowly blinks her eyes. They went from gold to green to gold again. Had he for an instant glimpsed Vivacia looking out of those orbs, which hate that as a descriptor for eyes.
You don't like orbs?
The orbs. But I did want to point that out because I think it's important that I believe whenever we do eventually get Vivacia back, they do somehow share consciousness. So Vivacia is real. She's in there. And there's a potential she is actually hearing all this. So in some way she might be fighting. I don't know if she is yet. But yeah, I just thought that was a really important detail.
The dragon brings up Wintrow's looks, and he kind of reflects that, yeah, he does look awful. There's a lot of shiny, white, dead skin. He's very, very slow to healing right now.
Yeah.
I mean, he got pulled back from the brink of death, basically, through that healing that the dragon showed him how to do. And he's just contemplating that, yeah, he's always going to be kind of scarred.
Yeah, some parts of him might tan regularly, so he looks almost normal. Maybe not normal, but almost healthy. But there are parts of him that will always look dead and taut and weird. And he's just really feeling the sting of losing who he was. And he reflects on how this kind of is what his father set in motion with the cutting off of his finger. He's just no longer the priest boy that entered the ship.
And the dragon speaks up to talk to him about that insecurity. It says, but I could show you how to repair those scars. The knowledge is there, buried in the back of your mind, coated over and hidden from you. Poor little thing, with no more than the memory of your 15 short summers. Reach out to me. I'll show you how to heal yourself. No. She laughed. I see. This is how you profess your loyalty to Vivacia, by refusing to touch minds with me. A feeble tribute, but likely the best you can manage. I could force you, you know. I know you as no one else can. For a crawling moment, he felt the presence of her mind twined through his. She did not reach out to him. Rather, she let him sense that she was already there. Then she let her awareness of him go dormant again. But if you would rather remain disfigured, she did not bother to finish the thought. So again, he feels that longing, that like, I wish I could go back to how I was.
Yeah, and I think this is something about Wintrow is that he is a little bit vain, which that's not a negative statement. Yeah. That's just neutral.
Also, he's hoping after that connection again that he had, that true connection with like the skill, you know?
Yes. Yeah, and he's thinking to how he could learn more, and maybe he could learn to use that without the ship's help, and then he could teach others. Like, he's really focused on...
Could he regenerate his finger? Could he expel the tattoo?
What's the limits of this? And I do want to say, I don't think he would be able to regenerate a finger with the skill, because that's gone. But the rest, he definitely could do. And I just find that so interesting to think about. And I find it really admirable that after he thinks like all this knowledge could be mine, he also thinks I could share it.
Yeah.
And heal others and stuff. So I think that's a really strong feature of his as well, that he does crave that knowledge. He does want to learn, but he also wants to help others ultimately. And that's still there.
And the dragon knows that. She could not have chosen a better bait to tempt him. Such a healer as you could be. Consider, I could persuade Kennit to let you go. You could return to your monastery, to your simple and satisfying service to Sa. You could have your own life back again. You could serve your god with a clean conscience. With Vivacia gone, there is no real reason for you to be here. She had almost had him. He had felt his heart soaring on her words, but the last sentence brought him painfully back. With Vivacia gone. Gone where? You want me to go. Why? He asked quietly. And so he kind of latches on to that and kind of figures out that she wants him to go away because there's probably a fight for dominance still. She did struggle to maintain control of the figurehead. And Wintrow's like, well, me being here probably reminds Vivacia that she has something to fight for.
Right. While I live, I am here. Some part of Vivacia lives. And I think that's really important to their relationship because I think throughout this whole trilogy, they've really been struggling with their connection and what it means and what it is and if it's of Saw. But clearly there is some magical connection that they have that is helping to strengthen Vivacia. And this chapter, for me particularly, feels like a big philosophical dilemma. And then I feel kind of like Wintrow because I keep pondering like what makes a person, what is a soul,
Right.
and it is Vivacia a person if she never would have been without the memories of the Vestrits. And
You're a book and a half behind Wintrow here.
No, I think a lot of times when we have Wintrow talking with Vivacia in depth, I get these feelings, but this chapter especially, because it is the three of them that is thought on so heavily, all I can think about is like, man, what even is a person?
Well,
So-
Wintrow has decided here, and he speaks up and says, "My duty to my God is here, as is my duty to Vivacia. I shall not give her up so easily." Because he says that Vivacia still lives within you, and all that lives is of Saw.
Yes.
So he's decided that she is of Saw now.
Yeah, which is a big change because
I mean, I think he's kind of made that change over the past few months.
yes,
But
no,
yeah, this is
definitely.
exclaiming it out because it's
Yes.
never really been brought up between them since that
Right.
first argument. So having it said out loud is probably a big step.
Yeah, and I think it's big because if we think about where he started, he was thinking that she might be an abomination because how could she be of Saw if she's just wood come to life out of death? So I think this is big, and I hope Vivacia got to hear that.
Of course, the figurehead's like, "Oh, yeah, wow, how dramatic you are. Ha ha ha. Of course, I want you to go because Kennit is a better partner, and I want to partner with Kennit. He is a better mate for my ambitions." "You do you?" Etta's voice was cool and low. Wintrow startled, but the figurehead appeared only amused. So, of course, the figurehead knew that Etta was sneaking up and probably said that for her benefit as well.
True. And it does bring up a question between, or a conversation between them. So it was smart on her part to do that because this is the first time Etta gets to talk with not Vivacia.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know, their relationship is such an interesting one to me.
Yeah, the ship starts off by saying, "I want to claim Kennit as a partner," and then acknowledging Etta, like, "As do you. You want him as a partner too."
Yeah.
And then immediately goes into complimenting her and her choice of silks, and like, "Oh, see, Kennit dresses you in the finest things."
Yeah, in that color, you gleam like a rich gem in an exotic setting, which is a really interesting thing to me that this is the tactic to woo a dragon. And so it's interesting to see a dragon use that on Etta. But I think especially this chapter, we get to see the dragon-like qualities of Etta and the similarities between Vivacia's dragon self and Etta.
Yeah. And Etta's blushing here to all these compliments, being like, "Ooh, silver gleams on me. Nice."
Yeah. Silver's my color, not gold.
Wintrow feels excluded from the glances and the looks that they're sharing here. And Etta gives a small shake of her head as if to break a glamour. And basically says, "Okay, leave us, Wintrow.
Yeah.
I want to have a private conversation."
To be fair, she says, "You're not well enough to be outside. You need to go."
Yeah.
But she is meaning, "I want a private conversation." And before we get to that, I do want to point out something that I found really interesting that Dragon says to Etta. And it's in regards to the silk that Etta is wearing. She says, "When I was in my proper shape, I had no need for fabrics, of course. My own sweet skin flashed and shone more beautifully than anything human hands could make. Still, I know something of silk. Only in Verania could they make that shade of dragon blue." And I just wanted to talk about that. why does she know anything about silk as a dragon? Like, do you think dragons were gifted silk? Is it because she was close to an elderling that made silk? What
Could be any of those.
is it? Her memories of her time aboard or as the ship, like the knowledge of
Maybe.
the Vestrits?
Could be any of those.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just speculation at this point because I mean she knows the name of the one woman from the story that
True.
Kennit was telling. Like, why would she need to know a story about humans? So like it's just
I think
accumulate knowledge.
Yeah, I think that the thing that stands out to me in that is that it points to the fact that dragons were probably a lot more entwined with humans on their end as well. And I think a lot of times we talk about how elderlings were enthralled with the dragons and how they love the dragons and they were really, obsessed with dragons. But we always kind of talk about dragons as this, like, I don't know, cat-like animal that kind of doesn't care. Like, they like the attention, but they don't care one way or the other about humans. And it's this new generation that's weird, that's getting too close to humans. But I really think this points to the fact that dragons probably did have pretty good relationships on their end as well.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Tintaglia thinks highly of the previous elderlings.
Yeah. So I don't know. That was just a thought I had. And then I also was wondering, through this conversation, I was wondering if maybe the part of the ship that Althea bonded with was the dragon part. Because of the way she talks and just how her demeanor is, it feels a lot more like the ship Althea always dreamed that Vivacia would be.
Maybe.
And we know that she had dreams of flying whenever she was in the, whenever she's connecting to the ship. So I was just wondering if maybe that connection was more.
But she also straight up lived the memories of her, great-grandmother?
Yes. Yeah.
So.
I don't know. Just a thought I had.
Yeah, combination of things.
But yes, so Wintrow has been excused. And although Etta tries to beat around the bush, the ship does not and says what she means is leave so we can talk. And then she makes him leave.
Yeah, so Wintrow starts to warn Etta, like, I wouldn't trust anything that she says, really. We've not heard the truth about Vivacia. Legends are rife with the dangers of conversing with dragons. She will tell you what she wants you to. She was suddenly there again, inside him. This time he felt her presence as a physical discomfort. His heart skipped on a beat, then surged on unevenly. A sweat broke out on his forehead. He could not draw a full breath. Poor boy, the dragon sympathized. See how he sways, Etta? He is not at all himself today. Leave, Wintrow, the dragon repeated. Go rest yourself. Do. Be careful, he managed to gasp to Etta. Don't let her. A giddying weakness overtook him. Nausea rose in him. He dared not speak lest he vomit. He feared he would faint. He needed darkness and quiet and stillness. The need for those things overwhelmed all else in him. Only when he was in his own bunk did the symptoms recede. Fear replaced them. She could do this to him at any time. She could heal him or she could kill him. How could he help Vivacia when the dragon had such power over him? He sank into a deep sleep.
Yeah, so that is a little bit of a scary revelation.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Yeah, live ships are a lot more capable of influencing the people than just everybody feeling the unease.
At least the dragon is capable of harnessing that.
Definitely. Yeah, the dragon remembers. But
the dragon is wielding that glamour and all the magic that it can.
Yeah.
Do you think it actually entranced Etta? Because there was a passage in there that said that they looked at each other for a long time and then she had to shake herself as if she was getting rid of a glamour.
I don't think in the magical sense that she has. I think the way she's able to affect Wintrow is only possible because of the link that they have through the bond.
Not
but
Wintrow.
No, I know.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
So she's only able to like affect him in those ways because of their bond.
Okay.
I don't think that ability transcends to other people. I think she's a
Okay.
very good speaker and can sense, obviously, other beings and their thoughts. But I think really it's just a case of her saying the right thing at the right time, sort of like Kennit does. Like, it's not magic when Kennit wins people to his side. It's just being a good speaker. And that's how I feel about this. What about you?
I don't know. There's a passage later about Kennit that I think she is using her influence to sway him, but they do have a bond as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of up in the air whether she could influence Etta, I suppose. But I do believe that she's obviously influencing Wintrow, but also can influence Kennit.
Yeah.
So it might just be people she has closer bonds with.
Right. Well, and she's also shared blood with Wintrow and Kennit. So that could be part of that as well, which is what makes me feel like that's why she's able to manipulate those two better, I guess. But with Etta, I don't know. As we go on, I think it'll be easier to explain. But with Etta, I really do feel like partially it's just like finally another woman's perspective. Because Vivacia was a woman, but was basically a girl because she has no real life experience. She was, newly awakened.
Yeah.
And also rebuffed Etta and was jealous of Etta. So I think, I don't know, Etta mentions that it's the first time to actually have women's company, and it's a really nice feeling. I think part of that is how the dragon can manipulate her a little bit.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, like you said, Etta says, "Who are you? You are not Vivacia. She never had a civil word for me. All she wanted was to drive me away that she might have Kennit for herself." And the dragon latches onto that and says, "At last, I should have known the first sensible person would be someone from my own sex."
Yeah.
Really playing into us females got to stick together.
Right.
Because we're the smart ones.
Yeah, because everybody else is like, "Vivacia? Is that you?" And so she's like, "Of course, you would know I'm not."
But she does state, "I do not wish to drive you away, nor take Kennit from you. Think of the man that Kennit is. There need be no rivalry between us. He needs us both. It will take both of us to fulfill his ambitions. You and I, we shall become closer than sisters." And then introduces herself as, "You can call me Bolt," because it's a short name for my super long name that is way too unwieldy for your tongue.
Yeah, in the ancient tongue, it might be conceived in a thunderstorm at the instant of a lightning bolt. That's the very first name she ever received as a dragon, or that's her oldest memory of a name.
Then laughs at Etta when Etta asks about after her true name.
Right. So I think that's an interesting aspect, that Bolt is what she goes by, but not her true name.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just find that detail interesting.
Well, I mean, true names have power.
True.
Right? So,
which is why Titaglia was so upset that Rain would wield her true name to a group of people.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so Bolt now is trying to, win Etta over by saying we can be together. And this just makes me wonder, are the dragons not territorial about mates then? Like,
we have no idea.
Dragons are canon polyamorous. I don't know, but they're going to be closer than sisters.
I think Bolt is pragmatic about her situation, though, too, because she tells Kennit, like, "I need you to sail me because I don't have a body." So I think she's just very pragmatic about her situation.
That's fair. Like, she's not an actual being, so yeah.
We get a little scene here where she's directing the helmsman and the ship is sailing better. So she seems to be commanding respect from the sailors as well. Etta's like, "Oh, what would Kennit think?" And then thinks back, and Kennit told the crew to listen to the figurehead as well, as if it was him giving directions. So she's kind of feeling the wind on her face, feeling the ship sailing forward. And she's thinking, we don't really need to hasten to a healer. Wintrow's kind of recovering on his own, so we're just kind of sailing. We're chilling.
Yeah.
And Bolt picks up on that and says, you have the eyes of a hunter. You know, we're very much alike. Just, again, relating to her and being like,
we're a team.
We're a team. We're going to be in this together for Kennit. We're both queens, you know?
Yes. And then, so she says, we could hunt well together, we two. An odd thrill ran down Etta's spine. Should not such words be given to Kennit rather than me? To a male? Bolt asked, a small stain of disdain on her laugh. We know how males are. A drake hunts to fill his own belly, and a queen takes flight and seeks a kill. It is to preserve the race itself. We are the ones who know from our entrails out that is the purpose of every movement we make, to continue our species. So now we're getting into kind of the main topic that the ladies discuss together, which is continuing on the race, and
makes Etta move her hand to her stomach where she feels her piercing.
Yes. And as if the boat is reading her mind, Bolt says, take it off. Etta settled into a great stillness. How do you know about it? Bolt did not even glance back at her, but continued to peruse the open sea before them. Oh, please. I have a nose. I can smell it on you. Take it off. It does no honor to the one it once was part of, nor you to put him in such a purpose. So now we find out that live ships can smell wizard wood.
Yeah, it's part of other dragons.
Yeah. But that brings up the question, why hasn't Vivacia or Bolt commented on the wizardwood charm of Kennit that Kennit has?
Because I don't think Vivacia could smell them.
That's something to do with like the dragon.
Yeah. I think it's just the memory of like, oh, this is very familiar to me or something, you know?
Yeah. I guess we know that the serpents talk about how the ship smells like memories and like they can sense it in the water. So I guess it would make sense that the memories have a smell. I also find it really interesting that the charm that's on her navel, Bolt knows who it belongs to even. Like, oh, it does no justice to him. That was so interesting to me. And I wonder if it's like from the smell she knows the memories, or like, I don't know.
Or can just tell the gender.
Yeah, I don't know.
From the memories.
But yeah, so Bolt is saying, you don't need it. You're a woman, and your duty as a woman is to continue on the race and decide when to have children, and you don't need to have birth control, which is low-key crazy take. But
well, it's a different race as well.
Different race.
And
yeah.
Etta's like, well, I should talk to Kennit. And she's like, never. What? Never wait for a male on any such decision. You are the queen. You decide. Males are not made for such decisions. I have seen it time and time again. They would have you wait for days of sunshine and wealth and plenty, yet to a male enough is never sufficient, and plenty never reached. A queen knows that when times are hardest and and game most scarce, that is when one must care most about the continuance of the race. Some things are not for males to decide. So she is saying, take out the charm.
Just have a baby.
Just have a baby. It's
no big deal. It's your choice. You don't have to ask permission. That's not a decision made between two equal parties. That is your choice to make. So definitely getting to see a little bit more of dragon culture and how the dragons react and believe in different things, which makes sense because they are animals. So, so they would be most concerned with continuing the race, I guess. But yeah, it definitely is getting to Etta because she's been having these questions about if she and Kennit should have a baby. Kennit's been talking to her about it, but she just hasn't been sure.
And Etta pushes back against Bolt's, like saying, no, you decide, by saying, Kennit is not like other men. We both know that. You've chosen a good mate. But what is the good of it if it stops there? Take it off, Etta. Don't wait for him to tell you to do it. Look around you. Does he tell each man when the time is right for his task? Of course not. If he had to do that, he might as well do every task himself. He is a man who expects others to think for themselves. I'll wager a venture. Has he not already hinted to you that he needs an heir? He has. Well then, will you wait until he commands you? For shame. No female should wait on a male's command for what is our business. You are the one who should be telling him such things. Take it off, Queen.
Take it off, Queen.
Queen. Etta knew that by that term, the dragon meant no more than female. Female dragons were queens like cats. Yet, when Bolt said the word, it teased to mind an idea that Etta scarcely dared consider. If Kennit were to be king of the Pirate Isles, what would that make her? Perhaps just his woman. But if she had his child, surely then... Even as she rebuked herself for such ambitions, her hand slipped under the silk of her shirt to the warm flesh of her belly. And she takes it off.
She does. And I think this gets to the real heart of why she's willing to have a baby, which is interesting to me. And it's her own ambitions.
Yeah.
Which is not necessarily put in a negative light here, right? Like we're not like, oh, an ambitious woman trying to make this guy have a baby, but her thinking like, oh, I could solidify my position by having this child. And I find it interesting that that's really the thing that sways her.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So she does remove the wizardwood charm. And she says that she held it in her hand. The skull grinned up at her and she shivered. Just a quick question. This is carved into a face. Why, if she's been wearing it since she was a child, basically is what she says, why is it not alive the way Kennit's charm is? Like, why can't it talk or say anything?
I don't know. Maybe it's such a small amount.
I don't know. Just a weird thing that I was thinking about, that like, you would think that, especially because it has a mouth, it should be able to say something. And then I was thinking, since it has been in contact with her for so many years, it would have to have some of her sort of like her memories with it, right? Like that's the way Kennit's charm works. So part of Etta is in that. So then when the ship says, give it to me, Bolt says quietly, Etta refused to think about it. She held out her hand when Bolt reached back and dropped it into the ship's wide palm. For a moment it lay there, the silver wire glittering in the sun. Then, like a child gulping a sweet, Bolt clapped her cupped hand to her mouth. Laughing, she showed Etta the empty hand. Gone, she said, and in that instant the decision was irrevocable. What am I going to say to Kennit? She wondered aloud. Nothing at all, the ship told her airily. Nothing at all. And I just wanted to point out that may have a little bit of Etta in her, because I'm wondering if that may affect their relationship going forward. It's something that I want to look out for to see if there is a little bit more of that bond, but maybe not. I don't know.
Could be, yeah. Definitely a good thought.
So now there's the wizardwood charm and the Vivacia pin from that one guy.
Right.
At the very start of the book, or the first book, that are in the stomach, ? Mm-hmm. And Wintrow's finger. How could I forget?
Yes, and Wintrow's finger, of course. We switch over to Shriver's point of view. We are with the serpents, and she's commenting that the Tangle is pretty much the biggest in history that she has ever known, at least. It is massive, and they're all kind of owing allegiance to Malkin, and they're a mixture still of serpents. You know, some are still terribly feral and not aware of anything. Some are aware but not talking. It's just a wide mixture of different states of mind for all these serpents. But they are kind of operating like a tangle. They might go off and hunt, but they always meet together at the end of the day and sleep like a bed of kelp swaying in the water.
Yes.
And Malkin is thriving because the people that are hunting do bring stuff back that the individuals cannot, keep up with the hunt. They help out the individuals that are
Right.
struggling. So Malkin is healthier now.
And the numbers reinforce the confidence in Malkin's leadership abilities.
Mhm.
So he's feeling better about that as well.
Yet despite their numbers, they were no closer to finding the true migration path. The shared memories only made their wandering more frustrating. Tonight, Shriver could not rest. She untangled herself from her sleeping comrades and allowed herself to drift free, staring down at the living forest of serpents. There was something tantalizingly familiar about this place, something just beyond the reach of her memory. Had she been here before? Caesarea joins her, sensitive to her moods from their long companionship, and says, "You are right." He left her side to undulate gently down to a particularly uneven piece of seabed. He, in Shriver's eyes, kind of goes crazy and starts grabbing fronds of seaweed and stuff and ripping things up and flinging it aside to seize another mouthful and then writhes in the muck on top of that thing. And some serpents gather around like, "Is he okay?" And Shriver's like, "I don't know."
Yeah, she's like, "I don't know what's going on." He might have gone crazy.
And then he stops, goes back and says, "Look, you were right. Well, wait a bit until the silt settles. There, do you see?" For a time she saw only drifting sediment. Caesarea was out of breath, his gills pumping with excitement. Then a moment later, the blue beside her suddenly trumpeted wildly, "It's a guardian! But it cannot be here, in the plenty. This is not right." Shriver goggled in confusion. The blue's words were so far out of context she could not make sense of them. Guardians were guardian dragons. Were there dead dragons at the bottom of the sea? Then as she stared, the vague shapes amidst the drifting silt suddenly took a new form. She saw. It was a guardian, obviously a female. She sprawled on her side, one wing lifted, the other still buried in the muck. 3 claws had broken off one raised forepaw. Part of her tail thrust up oddly beside her. The statue had been broken in a fall, that much was clear. But how had it come to be here beneath the sea? It had used to stand above the city gates of Ruran. Yuran. Man, she really makes these hard to say, huh?
Yep.
Frengong. Uran.
Uran.
Then her eyes discovered a fallen column. And over there, that would have been the atrium that Desmolo the Eager had built to house all the exotic plants his dragon friends had brought back to him from the 4 corners of the earth. And beyond it, the fallen dome of the Temple of Water. "The whole city is here," she trumpeted softly. Malkin was suddenly in their midst. "A whole province is here," he corrected her. So they're once again figuring out the extent of the change. And Malkin is talking to all of them saying, "I thought and I hoped it was just a few coast-born buildings, but this city was very far inland and a whole land has fallen underwater. So things have changed far more drastically than we were ever aware of.
Right.
We've been north, we've been south, we've been searching for this river. I don't know if we're going to find it."
Yeah, the only hope now is one who remembers, and even that might not be enough just because of all the changes. And that is a big thing. Like, the world has changed so much over time. And it really goes to question, first of all, what happened here? Because, like, how did this get under the ocean? But also, how long have they been here?
Right.
Because a inland city being covered by the ocean due to rising ocean levels or whatever happened is not a fast process. It's not something that changes within a month or a year or two. That's decades and maybe even centuries of change.
It probably wasn't rising ocean. Remember, it was probably falling land.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know.
Because other island is the same.
Yeah.
And if it was rising ocean levels,
Well,
I feel
rising
like,
ocean doesn't like equally cover things, right?
yeah, everywhere it should slowly the land.
Mm.
Otherwise, the land would have to have fallen in order for it to be uneven,
Mm.
right? If the land was all the same, and it rose, hundreds of feet to
Yeah.
cover a province, then other island would also be covered.
Okay, fair. Yeah, I don't really know much about how that works. If I'm being-
Islands are not floating, is what I'm saying.
yeah,
They're
well, no,
anchored.
yeah, I know that, but
Yeah.
okay, yeah, that I guess that makes sense. That if it rises in one area, it'd have to rise everywhere.
So the tectonic activity, whole
Crazy.
plate like fell down.
Yeah, I guess this is very similar to like Pangea breaking up into
Yeah, sure.
like the new continents.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just everything's different.
Come on, Robin, become a geologist and map out the tectonic activity and
Yes.
the geological history of this world.
Yeah, I need a full world map so I can see what it looked like in its original form.
Yeah.
And
So Teller speaks up after Malkin says, I don't know if one who remembers is going to be enough, and is asking, how long then? How long do we have to wander? You mustered a mighty tangle, yet many as we are, we have few compared to what we once were. Have they all perished, the other tangles that should be swarming now? Are we all that is left of our people? Must we too die as wanderers? Can it be, perhaps, that there is no river, no home to return to? Malkin did not lie to them. Perhaps. It may be we shall perish, and our kind be no more. But we shall not go without a struggle. One last time we shall seek our one who remembers. But this time we shall bend all our efforts to that quest. We shall find a guide, or we shall die trying. Then we shall die. His voice was cold and dead, like thick ice cracking. The white serpent wove his way to the center of the serpents, to twine himself insultingly before Malkin. Shriver's mane stood out in horror. He was provoking Malkin to kill him. His insolent postures invited death. All waited for judgment to fall on him, but Malkin held back. So Malkin is there, silent but threading his own patterns before the white serpent, releasing some slow toxins and just creating a frozen tableau there.
right.
Nothing's really happening. And Malkin asks no questions, but the white serpent speaks up angrily and says, Because I have spoken with she who remembers. I was wild and mindless, as much a beast as any of the dumb ones who now follow you. But she caught me and she held me fast, and she forced her memories on me until I choked on them. Her memories were poison. Poison, more toxic than anything that ever flowed from a mane. When I recall what we have been, what we should be now, and compare it to what we have become, I gag. I would disgorge this foul life we still embrace. It is too late. Too many seasons have passed. Our time for changing has come and gone a score of times. Her memories are of a world long ago. Even if we could find the river to the cocooning grounds, there is no one to help us make our casts. They are all dead. No parents wait to secrete their memories into our windings. We would come out of our metamorphosis as ignorant as we went in. She gave me her memories, and I tell you, they were not enough. I recognize little here, and what I do recall lies wrong. If we are doomed to perish, then let us lose our voices and our minds before we die. Her memories are not worth the agony I carry.
So this is big news for the serpents because first of all, she who remembers is alive and out there.
Yes.
And then second of all, it's confirmation again that
Something terrible has happened.
Yes. Yeah. Because whenever they ate the ship, the live ship that they had captured, they realized what had happened to the cocoons and how things have changed, how there was a great cataclysm, but there was no guarantee, I guess, that dragons were dead. Obviously, it was a possibility, but no guarantee. And then here we have somebody who has all of their memories saying, no, everybody's dead. even if we could make it to cocooning grounds,
there's no dragons.
There's no dragons. So I don't know. And so it's really interesting to find out that, first of all, cocooning normally happens with parents specifically helping their baby serpents into cocoons, giving them their family memories to pass down. But also just that there is a whole process, and without the dragons, that's not something that the serpents can really do on their own.
Yeah. And Malkin is fed up with this and wraps him up and says, "Enough." His words were angry, but his voice was not. The foolish wight struggled, but Malkin squeezed him as if he were a dolphin. "You are but one. You cannot decide for the whole tangle or for the whole race. You have a duty, and you will do it before you take your own silly, senseless life. You will guide us to She Who Remembers. We have already absorbed some memories from a silver provider. If need be, we can take more. With what we shall gain from She Who Remembers, it may be enough. What other choice do we have?"
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me, what other choice have we? He speaks so poetically.
Yes, well, he's a million years old, so.
Yeah. Yeah, score of times they've passed their changing times. Again, this could be exaggeration or difference, but at least it's closer to a number. So 20 times they have had their changing season come upon them and not done anything.
Yeah. Which is extra sad for She Who Remembers, to think about how 20 times she was trapped in a cage or a cave cage and had to like grow despondent each time. I don't know. That just makes me really sad.
So if like our completely baseless guess of a life cycle of a serpent is 100 years old, that's 2,000 years that have passed.
Right.
If it's 50, which is maybe a little bit more reasonable, then it's still 1,000.
Yeah. A lot of time has passed.
We turn back to Kennit because we finish up with the serpent's point of view. They're going to go find the She Who Remembers, and if they have to, they will take down another silver provider and eat those memories too. We switch back to Kennit preening himself, looking like a man ready to go courting with all of these special different things, and
his good looks. He's really put effort into the way he looks.
Because he's going to go talk to Bolt, to the dragon figurehead. He had not slept well last night after his conversation, and even Etta could not, give him back rubs enough to fall asleep or anything like that.
But he also talks about how part of the uneasiness he's feeling is that his charm would not leave him alone, and kept telling him, take the deal, you need to take the deal. And that makes him even more uneasy, because why would the charm be so adamant to take the deal? The charm never helps him.
Yeah,
why would
he dare trust it?
Exactly. But does he dare not trust it? So it's a really tough question, and he's just really unsure of what he's going to do.
When he awakened, it was to discover this determination in himself. He would win the ship back to him all over again. This time, at least, he would not have her attraction to Wintrow to overcome. He knew little of dragons, so he had focused on what he did know. She was female, so he would groom his plumage, offer gifts, and see what it bought him. Satisfied with his appearance, he turned back to his bed and surveyed the trove there. So he's bringing her some gifts, like rings put together to give her as a bracelet. There's some actual bracelets that he's going to give as earrings of Etta's.
It's a belt made of silver rings with lapis lazuli. So it is a belt, but it just has like little rings on it. So yeah. But yeah, that belt will be a bracelet, which again speaks to the size of the figurehead, which I had the opportunity to see a figurehead. We both did, actually, in real life. We saw a figurehead at a museum, and they are so big. Like, I don't know. In real life, seeing a figurehead, it was like, whoa. I would not want that to talk at me.
Yeah, and especially like there are different sizes of figureheads.
Obviously,
right?
yeah.
I think we've had a couple listeners send us pictures of like museums that they've been to and they've seen, which were really cool. And I've seen some pictures of ships on the internet and in museums and in real life where the figureheads are kind of small. a little bit smaller than me as a human, but then some of them
Yeah.
are big. And if you knew that they were going to come to life and talk, you'd make them big too.
What? But no, I would make him small so it wouldn't be so intimidating. I guess that's the point, though, right?
Yeah.
Make him intimidating.
So he has a bunch of oils and jewelry and things like that to enchant this dragon and win her to his side.
Right. To entice the senses.
Mhm. He ties them to his belt. He didn't want to appear awkward before her because he needs his hands free, and he encounters Etta in the hall outside his cabin. Her gaze roved over him so that he felt almost affronted by her frank appraisal, and yet the approval that shone in her eyes assured him he had succeeded in his preparations. Well, she observed, almost saucily. A smile touched her lips. I go to speak to the ship, he told her gruffly. Let no one disturb us. I shall pass the word immediately, she agreed, then her smile widening. She dared to add, You are wise to go thus. It will please her. What would you know of such things? I had words with her this morning. She was passing civil with me and spoke openly of her admiration for you. Let her see you admire her as well, and it will tickle her vanity. Dragon she may be, yet she is female enough that we understand one another. She says we are to call her Bolt, as in lightning bolt. The name fits her very well. Light and power shine from her. What has brought about this new alliance? He asked her uneasily. She is different now. That is all I can say. I think she likes me. She said we could be like sisters. He hoped he concealed his surprise. She said that. She said it would take both of us for you to realize your ambitions. Ah. He turns away and thinks the ship had won her just like that, with a kind word or two. It did not seem likely to him. Etta was not a woman easily swayed. What had the dragon offered her? Power? Wealth? But an even more pressing question was why? Why did the dragon seek to ally herself with the whore? And he re-steels himself as he's going, win her over, and then her friendship with Etta will be no threat.
That really makes me sad.
That's
mean,
how
also,
Kennit lives. That's just who he is. Any other person swaying the thing of his desire is a threat to him.
Yes. Yeah.
He has to be the sole owner of everything.
Exactly. And I think also he doesn't have any friends. So, of course, he can't understand a friendship or a mutual agreement to get along.
But also, Bolt did sway Etta very fast.
Yeah, definitely. But I think
5-minute convo, and then she's like, oh, we're best friends.
right. But I mean, if you think about it, yeah, Etta has been jealous of the relationship between Vivacia and Kennit, but mostly that stemmed from, I believe, from Vivacia's petty jealousness and refusal to include Etta in anything.
Right.
And then instead we have Bolt say, no, we both are equally needed and we can be like sisters. Like, you're cool. I don't know. I think it's a lot of just like belonging, feeling a sense of belonging. Yeah. And it's not a real person. If a person had come to her in this way and spoke the way that Bolt did, they'd probably be dead because it's Etta. But like, I think because it is a ship, of course it was easier to like sway her. But there's not like a side. It's not, I mean, there is in a little bit of a sense, but there isn't a side. It's not with Kennit or against Kennit, as Kennit seems to think.
He goes out on deck and sees and senses a transformation in the ship. All of the crew are working hard, but they're also in high spirits.
And they're showing off for the ship.
From the figurehead came a cry of delight at one of the man's skills. In an instant, Kennit knew that the sailor hadn't slipped. He had just faked it and was just showing off.
Mm-hmm. He does a one-arm push-up off of a fake fall.
They cavorted like schoolboys for her attention. What have you done to affect them so? It takes so little to beguile them. A smile, a word, a challenge to see if they cannot raise a sail more swiftly. A little attention, a very little attention, and they vie for more. So Kennit's all like, oh, what are you doing to my crew? Like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm surprised you're paying attention to them because they're just humans after all,
Right.
like you said.
I don't know. Poor Kennit, because he already is a suspicious man, and now the ship is literally winning everyone over. And this is a big change from Vivacia, who only had eyes for him and kind of kept to herself otherwise.
But Bolt ignores his question of like, why are you deigning to notice the humans now? And just says, oh, we're going to have prey. I smell them on the horizon. It's a merchant ship. And Kennet's like, oh, you can smell that?
Yeah, there's a merchant vessel not too far hence. She carries spices from the Mangrador Islands. We shall soon catch her up if they keep my canvas tight. You can see this ship beyond the horizon? I do not need to. The wind brought me her scent, cloves and sandalwood, Hussein pepper and sticks of kimmery, the smells of Magnador Island itself. Only a ship with a rich cargo could have brought such scents so far north. We should sight her soon. You can truly smell so keenly? And then she talks about how her eyesight is also keen. And I know these waters as a ship, yet as a dragon I do not. All is vastly changed from when I last took wing. It is familiar and yet not, she frowned. Do you know the Magnador Islands? Kennit shrugged. I know the Magnador rocks. They are a hazard in a fog, and in some tides they are exposed just enough to tear the bottoms out of any ship that ventures near. Either the oceans of this world have risen, or the lands I knew have sunk. I wonder what remains of my home. Yet other island, as you call it, seemed but little changed. So some of my world remains as it was. That is a puzzle to me, one I can only resolve when I return home. So lots of changes.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me think back to when she's talking about the silk that Etta wears, and she calls it the Vivarian silk or whatever name of the island was. And I'm wondering if that too is a place that no longer exists. But clearly, things from those places have continued on.
Right.
So I don't know. But interesting to know that the Magnador Islands is no longer there. They are just a hazard in the water.
Yep. They're rocks to avoid. Kennit asks after her use of the word home. Where is that? Home is an eventuality. It is nothing for you to trouble yourself about just now. She smiled, but her voice had cooled. Might that be the thing you will want, when you want it? It might be, or it might not. I'll let you know. After all, I have not yet heard you say that you agree to my terms. Carefully, carefully. I am not a hasty man. I would still like to know more of what they are. She laughed aloud. Such a silly topic for us to discuss. You agree, because you have even less a choice than I do in the life we must share. What else is there for us, if not each other? You bring me gifts, don't you? That is more correct than you know. But I shall not even wait for you to present them before I reveal that I am far richer trove than you imagined you could ever win. Dream larger, Kennit, than you have ever dreamt before. Dream of a ship that can summon serpents from the deep to aid us. They are mine to command. What would you have them do? Halt a ship and despoil it? Escort another ship safely wherever it wishes to go? Guide you through a fog? Guard the harbor of your city from any that might threaten it? Dream large and larger still, Kennit, and then accept whatever terms I offer. You extend too much. What can you want? What can I give you worthy of what you offer? And then she just goes like, well, you are the one who is going to sail me. Right. I am not alive. I don't have a body. We have to hunt, you and I together. So we'll be that partner. I require a captain who understands the joy of the hunt and the quest for power. I need you, Kennit. Agree. Her voice dropped lower and softer. Agree. He took a breath. I agree. Again, it happened so quickly.
Yeah.
It happened so quickly. Just like the conversation with Wintrow, just like the conversation with Etta, just like now. He's like, how could Etta ever be swayed by a word or two? And then he goes in and 2 minutes later
is swayed by a word or two. Yeah. I think, I don't know. because so part of me, I still don't feel like it's magic. I don't know. It just feels like she's really persuasive. Like it's a little bit magic because she can sense people and know like the heart of their desires, especially people like Kennit, who she's attached to, and Wintrow, and then Etta, I think might have just been an educated guess. But with Wintrow and Kennit, she's attached to them. And so she knows what they want. And telling Kennit, dream bigger, dream for more power. All I want is somebody who likes the hunt and desires power. That's basically all Kennit is. So that's the perfect deal to strike with him.
Same exact thing. It was the perfect deal to strike with Etta and the perfect bait to tempt Wintrow. You know, it's just kind of a recurring theme in this chapter.
But interestingly, Wintrow said no. He said, that is perfect bait, but I will not take it. So I think...
because the last words of like where Vivacia has gone, and then it's like, oh, Vivacia's gone.
Right. But still, I don't know. Maybe it is magic. Maybe it is all her just putting them under a trance. But why make a deal at all if you had to? Like if you could just magically make people agree with you, why make it a deal?
Kennit leaned on her railing. Elation rose in him. He could scarcely believe his dreams were all within his grasp. He groped for something to say. Wintrow will be very disappointed. Poor boy. The ship nodded. He deserves some happiness. Shall we send him back to his monastery? I think it is the wisest course. He covered his surprise that she would suggest it. Still, it will be hard for me to see him go. It has torn my heart to see his beauty so destroyed. He was a very comely youth. He will be happier in his monastery, I am sure. A monk has little need of smooth skin. Still, shall we heal him anyway as a parting gift? A reminder to carry with him always of how we shaped him. Kennit was incredulous. This too you can do. This too you can do. Far more effective, don't you think? Go to his cabin now, lay on your hands, and wish him well. I shall guide you in the rest. So we switch over to Wintrow.
Right, and it is a scary point of view.
Yeah, because he says a strange lethargy has kind of trapped him and he can't wake up from it. So I'm interpreting this as Bolt holding him.
Yeah.
In some sort of semi-unconscious. People are worried about him. They're like, he's not waking up, whatever. Yeah. He barely hears these voices in the background and he's struggling to become conscious. And then all of a sudden he feels Kennit's hands on him and a warmth spreading out from Kennit's hands. It suffused his skin, then seeped deep into his body. Kennit spoke softly, encouraging him. The fires of Wintrow's life force suddenly blazed up. To his consciousness, it was as if a candle suddenly roared with the light and heat of a bonfire. He began to pant as if he were running an uphill race. His heart labored to keep up with the rushing of his breath. Stop, he wanted to beg Kennit, please stop. He screamed his plea into his own darkness. He could hear the startled gasps and cries and of awe of those who watched outside him. He recognized the voices of his crewmates. Look, you can see him change. Even his hair is growing. It's a miracle. The captain's healing him. His body's reserves were burned recklessly. He sensed that years of his life were consumed by this act, but could not defy it. This is what the dragon took him back from when he was healing himself.
Yeah.
This is like, hey, you can't go any further. Your body can do the rest. And now the dragon realized, after it reawoken and took control of the figurehead, Wintrow's just a nuisance, going to remind me of Vivacia and have Vivacia struggle. I need to get rid of him. I don't care if he burns years off his life.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is kind of scary that this is happening. And I assume Kennit is unaware, although would he really care if he knew? Because
he might care, but
I don't know.
Maybe not, because the
optics are too good.
Yeah, the optics are so good.
And yeah, so Kennit is performing another miracle, laying hands on the boy.
Kennit is performing a miracle.
And again, we have Wintrow, who knows the reality of the situation.
Trapped in his own body, screaming into a void. Like, stop it, please.
Please, God, no. But again, these miracles that Kennit keeps getting credit for, it's really interesting to me that Wintrow knows that these are not miracles Kennit is performing. Kennit is not some god that has these magical abilities. He knows the reality of the reasoning behind every single thing that has happened. And yet he still follows Kennit and lets people believe that these were all miracles Kennit achieved, and he's loyal to Kennit even after Kennit's death. It's just so weird to me. Like, he can tell he's a con man.
Not right now, he can't.
What do you mean?
What other miracle besides this one can Wintrow see through?
Calling the serpent forward to...
Wintrow doesn't know that.
Okay.
Wintrow is basically near unconscious, and why would Etta, why would the crew, why would Kennit lie about that? Because that's what happened. Wintrow was already unconscious and not aware of that connection.
But he knows it's a serpent that he helped. Like, he's smart enough to put two and two together to be like, maybe it helped me back.
Is he?
I don't know. I would think so.
And why would the serpent care about him?
Okay.
Wintrow was all caught up about, like, this being is intelligent and has a grander purpose than I have.
Okay.
Why would he care about why would the serpent care about the little human?
Sure.
You know?
Okay, well, even that one. The next one is the healing of Wintrow, which Wintrow did to himself. Wintrow knows he healed himself. He knows that it was his own doing through the ship.
Sure.
And now he knows that the ship offered him this ability. So...
But those two things are within a day of each other. He hasn't really been around.
I guess, I don't know. But I'm just saying that, like, later, as he reflects on life.
But remember, he chose to follow Kennit before these miracles happened. He chose to follow him and, like, spoke out his praises to the folk of Divvytown before these things happened because of the good that Kennit was doing, quote unquote. So Wintrow is already on his side. He was already praising him for his ideas and his vision, and isn't really following him because he's a crazy person of Saw.
Right.
But the serpent thing kind of slid it further into, like, oh man, I was right in choosing this.
Okay.
You know, so it's not like the miracles are what made Wintrow follow him.
No, but you would think that the fact that Kennit's trying to claim that he did miracles that he didn't would make Wintrow be like, well, Saw did them for you at the very least.
Yeah, but Saw works through him.
Okay. I don't know.
But also, it'll be interesting to pay attention to see if Kennit claims those, or if it's just his crew that's saying, like, Kennit did miracles.
I guess, yeah.
I know Kennit says, like, I can direct serpents because, you know, Bolt does, and Bolt offers that power to Kennit.
Right.
So that works, and directing the serpents around is, like, something that he can do and is, I guess, a miracle to other people.
Right.
Or using his tools. But I would be curious to see if Kennit does claim being a miracle worker besides just in his own head.
Okay.
So Wintrow is trapped, and Kennit is healing him, performing this miracle for all the rest of the crew, and says, "There, leave him to rest now. For the next few days he will probably only awaken to eat, and then sleep deeply again. Let no one be alarmed by this. It is a necessary part of the healing. I must rest too. This has cost me, but he deserved no less." Optics are too good.
Optics are too good.
The cost Kennit so much.
And I'm sure it cost Kennit nothing.
It actually might have been tiring.
I guess.
Says he drew a deep, ragged breath, which he's good at acting, but it could have cost him energy as well.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I'm not convinced. But we go to Kennit's point of view when he awakes from his nap or the sleep for the night, whatever it is.
Savoring his elation. So he did go to sleep. It was early evening when Kennit awoke, so it did take something out of him. He went back to his cabin and passed out. His sleep had completely restored him. Wintrow was healed by his hands. Never had he felt so powerful as he had while his hands rested on Wintrow and his will healed the boy's skin. Those of his crew who had witnessed it regarded him with deep awe. The entire coast of the cursed shores was his for the plucking. Etta fair shone with love and admiration for him. For one perfectly balanced instant, all was well in the world. I am happy, Kennit said aloud. He grinned to hear himself say such foreign words. And then he hears a wind rising and thinks maybe it's a storm. So he hastens up, goes out on deck, and realizes that the entire crew is mustered around the foredeck. They're all in an awe-stricken silence, and they part for him, and they see that Bolt is singing, and it's the sound of the wind. It's not a storm at all.
She sang with a voice like a rising wind, and then with the sound of waves slashed by wind. Her voice ranged from a deep rush to a high whistling that no human throat and lips could have produced. It was the wind song given voice, and it stirred him as no human music ever had. It spoke deep within him in the language of the sea itself, and Kennit recognized his mother tongue.
Then another voice joined hers, winding pure notes around and through Bolt's sea song. Every head turned. A profound silence stilled every human voice on the ship. Wonder replaced the first flash of fear that seized Kennit. She, too, was as beautiful as his ship. He saw that now. The green gold serpent rose swaying from the depths, her jaws stretched wide in song. That is the mention that I was kind of focusing on of the ship seems to be swaying Kennit in some way. There is a wonder replacing the first flash of fear that seizes Kennit, and she too was as beautiful as his ship. He saw that now.
Yeah.
It's very odd because a serpent is what ate his leg.
Right.
And he's terrified of serpents and what they can do. And he's just like, oh, this is beautiful and this is right. This is my language, the language of I was born into. It's very, very odd and counter Kennit.
I definitely see the influence happening from the ship. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't disagree that there is some influence happening. I just don't know that it's magically making his decisions for him.
It's fair. Yeah. She still needed him to say the words, I agree, to the terms and everything, so. Yeah, very point of view heavy book.
Yeah.
Lots of different ones flashing back between them. Scary chapter for Wintrow.
Mm-hmm.
And very, very interesting from the villain's point of view.
This, we should have named it Is Kennit Happy for this trilogy.
Yes, right.
And then for once we could say, yes. It's the first time he's ever been happy in his life.
He has the power of magic and a ship that is going to give him even more power.
He has the power of God and anime on his side.
True. All-powerful being. Finally happy for once.
Yeah. I never felt it before.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this chapter. It's a very interesting one, and it really kind of has a melancholic overtone because of the Wintrow thing, but also because of Althea and Brashen's mission is to recover Vivacia, and we see Vivacia is no more.
Yes. I think also it is kind of a loss of Vivacia, and that loss is something that you really feel in this chapter. It's no longer Vivacia. It is somebody completely different, and perhaps if you're a first-time reader, Vivacia won't be coming back.
Right.
So, yeah.
And she never really truly does. It's a mix of her and Bolt later on.
So, I don't know.
Yeah. As I said before, thanks for tuning in. And as I said at the beginning of the episode, if you have thoughts on this chapter, please let us know. You can email us at isfitshappy@gmail.com or talk to us, comment anything on our social medias. You can find us at isfitshappy on all of the popular social medias out there, Facebook, Reddit, YouTube, X, Threads, Instagram.
Yeah.
We're at all of those.
And we always look forward to reading what you have to say. All right, welcome back to the fun part of the episode where we talk about things that you, the audience, have brought to our attention. And I'm going to start this with an exciting announcement that Robin Hobb followed our Instagram account, which I would have immediately posted on the story and made a big deal about, but then she would have seen it. And that feels weird. And I'm just assuming that she doesn't listen to the podcast. And if you do, Robin Hobb, I am elated. And also, I'm very sorry that you have to see random weird memes of your books that you created.
Yeah.
So yeah, just know that if you have follow us on Instagram and have seen the most recent baby eating meme that I made about a Paragon. That's not the most recent, but one of the most recent. That is something that Robin Hobb has also most likely seen. So what a crazy world.
What a crazy world indeed.
So anyway, just something that I'm very excited about, but felt too embarrassed to post excitedly about on Instagram. So you all get to hear my excitement IRL. Well, in your ears, I guess. Anyway, we have a couple comments that we're going to talk about today that come from Facebook Messenger. We'll start first with a message from Claire on Facebook that says that after reading the first chapter of the Liveship trilogy, something popped into their head. I think it was Emma who said she would enjoy a book from Regal's perspective. Is Kennit so different to Regal? Delusions of grandeur? I don't know, etc. So what do you think? Is Kennit's chapters our Regal?
Well, you're the one who wanted the Regal book.
Yeah.
Does it line up with your expectations? I think Kennit is too competent.
Yeah. Well, that's not fair. Regal might be.
I think Regal can be competent, but he's competent in a cruel way.
He's more like the satrap Cosgo.
Yeah.
And I also feel as though he's not similar to Kennit in that he has all of his emotions available to him and probably does feel love for some people.
I feel like Kennit would be closer to Galen.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, Galen is obviously not social or anything like that.
Not good at manipulating people.
I feel like the level of ability, disdain, and planning would be like Galen's avenue. I mean, yeah, Regal is much more similar to Kennit in characteristics, I suppose. But yeah, I like the Regal and Cosgo comparison.
Yeah, I don't know. I still would want Regal's point of view, but I think what interests me about Regal that we don't get with Kennit is the fact that Regal is born to, like, as a ruler. Well, not a ruler, I guess, but he's born the third son.
Yeah.
And he feels he is owed the title of king. And it's not something that he was told was his all along. I guess technically he was by his mom.
Yes, his mom really told him that.
Yeah.
He should.
But like Kennit was kind of told in like like the way parents console their kids of like, oh, you're going to rule all this land someday. It wasn't necessarily like a real king telling.
You're going to have your little kingdom of this island, this small island.
Yes, exactly. So I think in that there's a lot of differences, and I would be really, and there's less politics in Kennit. I mean, obviously there are some politics that go into being a king or trying to woo people to your side, but he's creating a kingdom from scratch with a group of free people who have never had a king.
Yeah.
That they have chosen. He
just needs bold ideas and huge acts.
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas Regal is part of the monarchy that already exists and
Needs to pull off a coup.
Yeah. And so I feel like the like political side of that is way more interesting to me. And just knowing how involved he is, like who are Regal's spies, because he doesn't have use of Chade. So I want to know what his spy
Lady
network.
Time?
Yeah.
Chade doesn't exist.
True. But I want to know, like, what is Regal's spy network? Who are his confidants? Who are his advisors? Yes, he does a lot of drugs. Like, what is he doing when he's not doing drugs? Like, he has to be planning stuff sometimes. Or is it all his advisors that are doing everything for him? I don't know. I think that's what's interesting about Regal that we can't get out of Kennit's point of view.
Yeah.
But
I do see that they are like similar.
Yeah. And with it definitely, I love getting Kennit's point of view. I think it's fun to get the bad guy's point of view and not have him necessarily be turned likable for us to more easily digest his point of view. I mean, he is somewhat likable, even though he is a horrible person, just because he has like that natural charisma. And that's something I also don't think Regal would have.
Right.
Because it doesn't necessarily, I don't know though. He does have charisma to other people, just not his family members. So who knows? But yeah, so that I think definitely similar. And I definitely like having Kennit's point of view, but I still want a book with Regal's point of view. So thank you for that question. And then we'll go to something written in to us from Naomi. Naomi writes in talking about the part that we read where the dragon part of Vivacia talked about her mother and her mother's mother, etc. I wondered whether the memories each dragon gets are passed from the same gender as them, or perhaps they can only access the memories of their own gender. I'm thinking about all the discussions from the dragons about how all queen dragons are so different to the males, and I thought you would expect there to be more gender fluidity if half their memories were coming from male dragons and half from females. Love to hear your thoughts.
I agree with Naomi here that, well, I agree with like the question that she presents us, because I felt the same way about Bolt speaking and about Tintaglia speaking. They're so fixated on how queens are like the best role and primary importance that I feel like they've only been their own gender the whole time.
Right.
And I feel like that's kind of the cycle. I think all of the serpents that we see, that we know turn into certain dragons in the Rainwell Chronicles, stay the same gender as well. So I feel like that's just what they are born with, you know?
Yeah.
They don't change genders at all. It's just, that's what they access. That's what their memories are. That's what they get. I don't want to look at it too closely because I doubt Robin Hobb thought of biological cycles and what that would mean for populations and things like that.
Right.
But that's the idea that I get from how it reads.
Yeah, I think it definitely would make more sense if especially the ships that don't have bodies would be more gender neutral and would talk and speak more as though both genders fit, because again, there's no, I don't know, it's not a real body. But then maybe I guess whatever they present as the figurehead, that counts, and so that's the memories they're accessing. And
we talked about this before too, though. Like, are any of the figureheads different from the gender of the original dragon that was being born? And I don't think so. I don't think we have a specific example of it.
Right. So yeah, it's definitely interesting. And even the charm that Kennit wears is part of a male dragon. And we know that, like, it has told us that. Yeah. So it's really interesting that we don't really get any examples of there being any dysphoria or neutrality. It's kind of all just black and white. Like, this one's a girl, that one's a boy.
Well, there is dysphoria, but not about gender.
Yeah, not gender dysphoria. So I don't know. I just find that really interesting. And maybe it's just something where they like accept the body they're born into and take over and like lean more into the memories of the body that they're born into. I don't know.
So you're thinking they have both sides of the memories and they're not always born the same gender?
Yeah, I
They're
think like
same sex.
there's a potential. I mean, there's literally no evidence to this. I just think if we wanted to go down that thought path, maybe they just, whichever sex that they identify with, that's the memories they take. And they don't really look into the male memories because, especially with queens, why would you need to belittle yourself to look at those male memories?
Right.
And for males, why would you want to know what a queen is up to and has done? You're not a queen. Like, that's not your job. You don't need to worry about all that.
Yeah, definitely could be that route as well. I don't know. To me, it just reads as if they were always the same gender throughout all of the ages, which, you know, it definitely can be explained off on what you just talked about.
Yeah.
How they don't access the other memories, but it definitely reads that way.
Yeah. And
very different, interesting thought.
Yeah, definitely. Something that I wish was kind of more addressed, but again, Robin Hobb is very loosey-goose with her writing style, or her magic systems, I guess. So just something that we have to speculate on, I guess. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Thank you for everybody who writes in. We always enjoy seeing what you have to say, and we look forward to hearing from you next week.